You're listening to the On Your Mark podcast, a space for honest conversations with the school system leaders shaping what's possible for early readers. From high-impact tutoring to building trust with families and teens, we dig into what it really takes to make early literacy work for all kids. Welcome, everybody, to the On Your Mark podcast. I'm your host, Mindy Sjoblom, and I am absolutely thrilled to be joined today by Dr. Jerry D. Hollingsworth, the Superintendent of Schools for Eagle Mountain-Saginaw Independent School District, covering Northwest Fort Worth and Tarrant County, Texas. Jerry, would you mind going ahead and introducing yourself to get us started?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Mindy. I'm really pleased to be able to join you today. And you did a great job. We're on the north, really the north and northwest sides of Fort Worth, Texas, and we take in about 73 square miles, and so we're a pretty large district. We just in August, yes, ma'am. In August, we just rolled over 24,000 on the odometer, as I like to say, with children. And so, great school district, tremendous parental support, tremendous. I have a tremendous board for whom I work, and just really honored to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here, and I know how busy your schedule is, so we really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your background and also really more about the district's focus on literacy. And I'd love to just get started to learn a little bit, though, about your path to this place. So tell us a little bit more about Jerry Past and how you ended up in your current district.
Yeah, so I actually began teaching in on the northeast side of Fort Worth in Hershey Bedford ISD. I was a U.S. government teacher. I was a political science major at.
Me too.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I was a poli-sci major in my undergrad. Went to TCU, go Frogs, and and then immediately began working to become a principal. I was inspired by some incredible teachers in the small town where I am from. And so teachers and my high school principal had a huge influence on me. And I said, okay, that's what I want to do. And so really started that pathway and went to the University of North Texas way back in the 90s and got my master's, and then immediately started working on my doctorate. Mm-hmm. So I graduated from UNT, the University of North Texas, with my master's and doctorate. And then I have had a number of positions. Most of all of my campus level experience was at the secondary level in middle school and high school. And then I've had the opportunity to work at the central office level with curriculum and instruction and campus leadership. And I'm in my 33rd year of doing this work, and came to Eagle Mountain-Saginaw in January. This is my third superintendency. This is my final superintendency. Because I have come to just an amazing school district, and my wife Ginger and I have 3 boys, and that's in a nutshell right there.
Awesome. That is quite a path. You're a lifer in it from the start. I think there are many of us who find our way into education leadership who knew very early on that was a calling that we were being moved into. So it's always exciting to hear more of those stories for sure. I'm curious if you could tell me just more broadly, since our focus really is on literacy, why does the topic of literacy really matter to you?
Well, I will just tell you that as our society has changed, and as we have every district throughout the United States, most school districts for sure, have changed in terms of the students who are walking in the door, meaning that as school people, we can't assume that children are going to come to us with skills and things that I think, Mindy, and you're much younger than I, but I think if I were to guess the way you and I went to school, most people assumed that kids knew their letters, they knew their color, they had been read to at night before they were put down for bed, and we can't make those assumptions anymore. Children come to us with just a wide variety of backgrounds and experiences related to literacy in particular. And so you just can't assume those things. We don't use those things as excuses for why it is that maybe a school or a classroom is not performing. We just have to, but we need to know those things. You got to know who's walking in your door so you can serve them better.
Yeah, that's right. I just really appreciate what you just said and want to dial it back for a second around how things have changed. And yet we don't use those as excuses.
Right.
Because we meet our kids where they are and then figure out exactly what it is that they need in order to get there. And that definitely is something that resonates deeply with me as well. I'm wondering if you could tell me, if we jump then into the president, how does that play out in your classrooms then? Let's get a little bit more specific. What does that mean for your teachers from those early kindergarten days all the way up through when they, become those middle and high school students?
Well, I will tell you a really impactful conversation that I had about 7 years ago. I was a new superintendent. I was, my first superintendent's position was in the Texas Hill Country. I was in Bandera. Bandera is the cowboy capital of the world. There is. It's northwest of San Antonio. It's a beautiful part of Texas. I was talking to one of our occupational therapists, and she was telling me how, I said, well, tell me how things are going. And she said, I got to tell you, she said, one of the greatest challenges that we're seeing is that we have a lot of children who are coming to us and they don't know how to hold a pencil, they don't know how to hold a pen. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, it's not that they just hadn't had to do it. And they don't, she said, kids don't color. I said, they don't color. I said, that's true. Because you don't see, even 10 years ago, if you go to Chili's, I mean, they hand you colors and a little
coloring sheets. Yes.
The coloring sheet. And so, and she said, so their little muscles are not developed to be able to hold a pencil because they haven't done the coloring. And I just thought, oh my word, I hadn't even made that connection. And so it's little things like that. And so it has a tremendous impact on what happens in the classroom. So now with a growing number of children, we have to teach them how to even hold a pen or a pencil. And there's one really, impactful story.
Yeah. I mean, a super specific example around how our children just access literacy in different ways now too, than I think, as you said, and I'm not that younger than you, that as we've experienced, than we experienced when we were in schooling. Mm-hmm. And I think keeping that perspective in your seat is really important and really valuable for sure. I'm curious, you all have, you've been in this position with Eagle Mountain for what, 8 months now?
Yeah, since January. 9 months. Yes,
9 months. I mean, so there's huge opportunity in that, right? Mm-hmm. There's, coming into a district as a new set of eyes, somebody with different experiences to come in and to be able to really move the district forward. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what are your strategic priorities? How have you been approaching that? And how have the first 9 months been?
So the first thing that I did, and it's really what every leadership course will teach you, is they said, go in and listen. Yeah. My daddy would say you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them proportionately, so, I spent a lot of time going around to all of our 31 campuses, talking to our staff, listening to them. We created some real specific ways to do that. I conducted interviews with all of my starting with my school board members and then moving to principals and central office directors and leaders. And then just began to really listen to what are our greatest strengths as a community. We have a tremendous level of family support. Tonight we're having a band expo. So we have 4 large high schools, and we have 4 incredible marching bands. And so they have been in preparation for marching band season, as we call it in Texas. And so they're getting ready to do their first UIL, which is University of Interscholastic League competitions for band. And so I get to go tonight and we get to participate in, but the stands will be just completely full with families and friends who are there to support these musicians. And it's incredible to see that. And that's real typical in Eagle Mountain-Saginaw. And so anyway, so we began to just listen to what are those themes. And one of the major things that emerged is, we are, generally speaking, we need to tighten our systems. We learned that there's a lot of variability from school to school, classroom to classroom. And so, we began to see that we need to tighten our systems, and we needed stronger resources for mathematics, for English language arts, for Spanish language arts, and so forth. And so those are just a few of the things that began to emerge, but I can talk too long, so I'll hush.
Well, that's why we're here today, is to learn more about exactly what those things are. And so really, if you're thinking about, one, the listening tour, so important, right? And getting to spend that time. I know that really also just helps encourage people's confidence in you, to know that you're there with them on the ground to do the work, right? When you say stronger systems and resources, let's bring that back down to literacy. So what does that mean when it comes to making sure that you're meeting your reading and your ELA goals? And what are those goals?
Yeah, so for our district, well, and I think it's true in most school districts, if you don't have a really clear way of teaching reading, phonics, writing, if it's not clear or if there is a lot of variation, then it leads to spotty results. It leads to inconsistency in results. And for our district, we have grown really fast over the last 15 years, for example. Mm-hmm. So when you're growing really fast, our district's done a beautiful job of keeping up with the growth. We have beautiful facilities and they're really well maintained, and we've had really great support from our community to build those facilities. But inside the building, if you go to a small town 20 years ago and Miss Sjoblom and Mr. Hollingsworth are both teaching, 7th grade language arts, we may share some, and we've got a curriculum that has some resources. But if you go into if you go into Miss Sjoblom's classroom and Mr. Hollingsworth's classroom, you're likely going to see some pretty significant differences.
That's right.
And that worked pretty well when we were really similar in terms of our demographics. We're very homogenous, and we could rely on families are reading to their kids and sending them to us with the same set of skills. But as your demographics change significantly, and as the family dynamics have changed, we have to have consistency. And you're really trying to remove variability from classroom to classroom. You're trying to remove variability from campus to campus.
And so I'm curious too, just having been a teacher and also worked in teacher prep for quite some time as well. How are teachers receiving that? Sometimes that push towards consistency can be met with resistance.
So it's really hard. It's a hard transition. And how are they receiving it? Though I would say most are receiving it well. that was part of the reason for doing the listening tour, is because we heard from our teachers that we needed stronger resources. And we needed more consistency in our approach to how it is that we were teaching, especially when it came to reading and writing and mathematics. And so they asked us for those things. Now, the difference is now we're doing it. And so there's, so people, and I'm actually going back on my next round of going to campuses. And I'm like, I know this is really hard because it is. Yeah. And so these are much more rigorous resources. They push kids to a higher level. And so it's exposing gaps. And so if you got a fourth grade classroom and teachers will say, well, I mean, our kids, they haven't been challenged as much as they need to in second and third grade. So we see some of those gaps now. And so we're having to really work together. We're doing a lot of collaborative work. We built in time for teachers to be able to internalize lessons, and understand what's in those lessons before they put them.
That's great. Like within the actual planning structures.
Yes, ma'am. During the day.
That's huge. When we value something, making sure to put the time behind it, because our teachers work so hard, and honoring that with time is such an incredible move. So glad to hear that is the case for sure. And also like changing curriculum and changing instructional practice takes time, right? It really does. And honoring that, especially if I'm a teacher who's been teaching the same curriculum for the past 10 to 12 years, it's also hard to trust in new systems and new ways of doing things as well. How do you help sort of ease those tensions and those fears that teachers have?
Well, having a lot of conversation about it and making sure that we're really supporting principals well, the ability of principals to be able to have the tools and be able to appropriately lead change on their campuses is huge. Making sure that we have a lot of consistency in the messaging that we're saying. One of the things that as I'm going out and I'm talking to teachers and visiting with them again this year, what I'm hoping to hear back from principals, and so far that's what I'm hearing. I want to hear them say, when you were talking about X, Y, or Z, they've already heard that from me. They're hearing a real consistent message. Teachers are really hard on themselves. Teachers are perfectionists, and so we're having to really remind them that it's October the 8th, and you have to give yourself some grace because they just want everything to be perfect. And we've been doing this now for 7 weeks. So.
Okay. And that's putting on that hat of a learner, I think is something that I know I love, I know teachers love. And the reality is that they all care about their kids so much, and they want to make sure that kids are getting the best, right?
Yeah.
So I can understand why they're being hard on themselves in making those transition and changes too. That makes a ton of sense. Thank you for that.
Yes.
I'd love to learn a little bit more about what y'all are doing for struggling readers, and love to ground that first in some of your personal experiences too, and why supporting struggling readers is something that is really close to your heart, if you wouldn't mind sharing more about that.
Yeah. And you and I talked a little bit about this before we came on. I have three boys. My wife Ginger and I do. My oldest is 25 and my youngest is 17. And my oldest and my youngest both struggled mightily as readers. They're both identified as dyslexic, and that doesn't always look the same, as you know, in terms of how it manifests itself. But for our boys, it was pretty similar, and so we did read to our children from the time they were tiny, and so we really thought that we were going to set them up where where reading was not going to be a teeth pulling exercise when they got to school. But that was not the case. I remember asking when Wyatt, my oldest, was in I think second grade. My principal was his principal was talking to me, and I worked in the school district I was over secondary schools, and I was talking to his elementary principal.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Sarah, how much of a struggle is it with Wyatt? And she goes, if I'm being honest, we're really scratching our heads. I mean, it's a real challenge. So I just felt that weight that I know parents feel when you learn that your child's struggling.
Yeah. I think something too, because, as I had shared with you before as well, that my youngest child, who's now 16, was diagnosed with dyslexia, but not until he was 13. Mm-hmm. And I remember when the struggles started to hit in school. And for him, like what happens with quite a few kids who struggle to access the reading, is it turned into behavior challenges. And I just remember the day, Jerry, that I think he was in 5th grade. And this was also, during COVID, so there was a lot of things moving and shifting. So it's hard to actually know where individual kids were because their learning experiences were so varied and all over the place. But I remember picking up his 5th grade novel and saying, "Can you just read this to me?" And it just hit me in the face that his lack of ability to be able to read fluently was so disrupting his comprehension. And I put myself in his shoes as a kid who had always identified as being like smart, because like he's intellectually like with it. Yeah. And to start seeing that frustration come out in the way that it did was just heartbreaking. And why, how do we figure out how to get the supports in front of kids that they need from a very, very early age? And so I know having those experiences as a parent and also being an educator can definitely really fuel the work, right? In both spaces too.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is yet another reason that I'm motivated to make a difference for our 24,000.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things that I'm curious to learn more about is that across this country, we have a challenge of students being able to read on grade level, right? Especially by that critical end of 3rd grade benchmark. I was doing a little bit of research before we hopped on and saw that your district over the past few years has been around 50% proficient, which is like hard to say because we're like 50%, that's not enough. And at the same time, it's also higher than a national average that we're talking about that falls in closer to the upper 30% of kids being on grade level in their elementary years. And so would love to just start digging in a little bit deeper about what your plans are for that. What are y'all going to do to really impact in that early literacy space?
So, one of the things that we've done is, we've created a balanced scorecard. And I know this may be boring and seem important in a lot of folks' world.
Nothing more exciting than data.
But we created a balanced scorecard as a way to hold ourselves accountable and as a way to district improvement plans in school districts, campus improvement plans on campuses are notoriously thick, unwieldy. I believe it's Peter Senge says, if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority. Okay. Yeah. And so you can see, I mean, ours is, that's it. That's the balanced scorecard. It's very, it's very, succinct. And so we've created priority one, and our, priority one in our district is student excellence in academics, and, district strategic objective 1.1 is high levels of learning for all. Every student grows at least 1 year every year.
There you go.
And so that's our kind of it is our highest, it's the highest, most important goal for us as a district. Mm-hmm. When you read anything about organizational improvement, one of the biggest, challenges is for we have 3,500 staff members. And so one of the biggest challenges for large organizations is, do people even know what our most important goal is? And so we're trying to be very clear that regardless of whether you're a senior in advanced coursework at Chisholm Trail High School, school, or if you're a second grader at Northbrook Elementary School, that our highest priority is that you're going to grow at least 1 year every year.
Yep.
In whatever it is that we're teaching you. And so that means we have to know where every one of the 24,210 kids we serve, where they are, so that we can move them. And so that's one of the major things that we've done, is this got adopted by my board at our September board meeting. So remember,
wow.
I'm new.
Brand new and fresh.
So that's just happened. And then really focusing in on making sure that our instructional materials are on grade level and rigorous.
Yep. And getting those implementations already moving. And that's a huge undertaking for sure. I also, I reminded of a good friend that I used to work with who would joke that the only way to ensure that something never happens is to put it in a binder and put it on a shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And what I appreciate about the approach that you're taking is that it really is focused on something that is actionable and that there's clarity throughout the organization, through different roles around what is most important to the
and just so you know, because everyone's like, well, okay, big deal. You put it on the difference about what a balanced scorecard does is we report every month to my board on progress on priority 1, which is around academics, and then on progress on the other 3 priorities. And the other 3 priorities are about staff, keeping great teachers, great staff, and attracting and retaining them. And then family and community engagement is and business engagement and church engagement, and that's 3rd. And then 4th is taking care of our money and taking care of our resources and those things. So we'll report on one of those priorities every month, but we also report on the priority 1 every month.
Every month.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a way to signal that it is a top priority for everybody in that space. That's incredible. How do you, I'm curious just operationally too, that feels like a lot on you and your team to be able to manage from a data collection perspective and ensuring that you're able to put those reports together. I know you've probably only had 1 board meeting so far this school year. How are those systems stacking up right now?
Yeah, so we're in the process of really developing what those reporting systems are going to look like. Yep. And so we do the monthly report, but we also do what we call we haven't done this yet, but our plan is to do a strategic roundtable. I have some experience doing this in a previous district, but we'll do a strategic roundtable, and that's where our leadership team, my key leaders, work with our 7 board members. And we take a deeper dive into the data, and we'll do that about 3 or 4 times a year. And so that way it's not just that front facing monthly board report, but it's one where we're able to dive in more deeply. We spend a couple of hours where the board can really get down in the weeds with us on how we're doing.
I'm curious too, just to bring it back into the literacy spaces, as we've been talking about those students who are struggling. Are there any specific strategies that you all are thinking about for those like tier 2, 3 students, the students who are falling behind, when you know that goal is to make sure everybody's making at least a year's progress? How are you all planning to intervene along the way? So
to be honest with you, Mindy, our bigger challenge has been on the tier 1 side. What we've found is, and this is not uncommon, I think, when your systems are not as strong as they should be around tier 1 instruction, we've kind of we've over identified children for special services. Our data shows that we have higher percentages of kids that we've identified for interventions, and it points back to not having as strong a system for tier 1 instruction. Yeah. So our focus really is on getting tier 1 right, so that, if little Mindy's struggling, it may not be because she has a disability. It may be because her tier 1 instruction's not been good.
isn't very good. And I was in a literacy training with an organization that I've had the pleasure of learning from over the past couple of years, where they made a statement that I thought, I've also heard it in other spaces too, but you can't intervene your way out of a tier 1 problem statement. And I was like, oh, well, this true. So true. And it's also hard as a teacher to learn so many different things at the same time. So
it's really hard. And we find like our K-1, 2 classrooms, the teachers tend to be, they tend to be self-contained. And so those teachers are having to learn a new math instructional resource and a new ELAR instructional resource. And that's really hard. It's a little easier for 3, 4, and 5, where they tend to be more departmentalized. And so they're only having to focus in on one instructional resource. And so that's something where we're having to add extra heaping helpings of
I like that.
Yeah.
Heaping helpings. I'm going to write that one down. Have you all, some of this in some of the districts that we've been talking with and that we also work with, they've employed, and I know this has actually been a big focus in Texas as well, is high dosage tutoring. And I just don't know if you have any experience with that as an intervention that's been successful for kids, or are you, or not?
I'm going to just be honest. I'm not super familiar with that. No, I've heard of it, but I'm not real familiar with it.
Okay, cool. I'm just always curious, especially when I think about the background that I come from, around who has the knowledge and who has been using some of the different tools or resources to support struggling kids. So that's definitely something that I'm curious about. What else, when you think about what you really want to be true 5 years from now? I don't know how long you're expecting before comes the final retirement.
I'd like to get 7 or 8 more for
there
me.
You go.
Yeah,
so
I'd like to hit my 40 years in this. So.
That sounds like a plan. So we'll look 7 or 8 years out now. What do you want to be true about Eagle Mountain-Saginaw 7 or 8 years from now?
Yeah, so that first and foremost, that regardless of where our kids reside in our district, and we really run the gamut. We're about overall as a district, we're right at 51% economically disadvantaged, and the state of Texas is about 62% economically disadvantaged as a whole. Yep. So I guess in some sense we're maybe on the favorable side of that, but we run the gamut. We've got Section 8 housing and kids coming from extreme poverty. And then we're on the, as I said, we're on the east side of Eagle Mountain Lake, north of Fort Worth. And we've got kids who come from $1 million homes that are sitting on the water. And so we run the gamut. And so my dream is, and my hope is, that regardless of where our kids are coming from in our district, that they are getting great instruction, in any of our classrooms, and that it's aligned. And I will tell you, our early reads on that are really encouraging. You know, we meet with our principals, every Monday morning. We have a virtual meeting for all of our secondary principal team, and all of the members of our elementary principal team. And they come together, to discuss what they're seeing in classrooms. And that's been really powerful, to hear their stories, because our principals are already saying that we've arranged for principals to be able to go to other campuses, and they're seeing that they're walking in third grade classrooms and they're like, hey, they're dead on. They're right there aligned with where my third grade classrooms are. And so that's really encouraging.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's such a privilege to be able to work in a space with such a diverse population of kids. And that you have this opportunity to really be able to learn from them in so many different ways. And that you all already have this eye on making sure that instruction is really strong across the board, regardless of those backgrounds.
I wanted to share something with you, Mindy, that I think is kind of interesting. In my previous district, before I came to Eagle Mountain, we were doing a study on, it was an older book. It's a book from, I think, 2012. And it was, Robert Marzano's, leadership that works, instructional leadership that works. And so we just thought, man, that'll be a really good one to kind of go back to and really dig in on. We were struck by, because there's been so much conversation around high quality instructional materials, on grade level instructional materials. And I'm telling you, that book from 13 years ago, from the guru of all things related to great leadership and great instruction, there was not a word discussed about instructional materials. And I thought, oh my word, that's quite an aha, where we've just learned that, why weren't we asking that question about the materials themselves?
I mean, I think I remember reading that book around that time. And it is so true. I think we often find ourselves in education and just in spaces in general by making it this either or rather than a both and thing. And the reality is we need really strong adaptive leadership. And we also need really great materials in front of teachers and kids. And that both of those things in partnership are really a place where magic can really happen.
No doubt. And so that was a big aha for us.
Yeah. Boy, I actually do think I remember doing a book study on that book. We have a lot in common. Sir, we do indeed. One of the things I always love to sort of wrap up these conversations with is to ask you got us going down the lane of books. And because this is a podcast focused on literacy, what are you reading? What do you read in your free time, or what is a book right now that you're interested in sharing about?
Yeah. So, I love books about, history. And so, one of my absolute favorites, that, I reread not too long ago is, Empire of the Summer Moon, which is all about, the Comanche, nation and, the rise of Quanah Parker, the great Comanche chief. And I'm probably interested in it because all of my mother's family is from Texas and all of my father's family is from Oklahoma. And so that it really, just speaks to, everywhere I've lived my whole life. And so, it's just a fascinating book all about the Comanches.
About the Comanches. That's awesome. It's something that I can definitely look up, because I will tell you, it is not, even as a former history teacher like you, it's not something that I have a topic that I have a lot of background on. So it's something I'd really be interested in learning more about. So
the Comanches were just incredible horse people, and they were incredibly skilled in riding horses. They measured wealth in their tribe, which is used very loosely. They were not organized the way a lot of other Native American tribes were, but they were incredible horse people, and they were very nomadic. And so they would go truly. It was not unusual for them to be in present day eastern Colorado and decide to ride down to the Texas coast. I mean, and they would ride, 800 miles and wouldn't think anything about it.
That's what I'm like. That sounds like really painful.
Yeah, I know, but they were incredible. And so it's just it was a fascinating read.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to looking it up, because there's a lot that I have to learn there for sure. I will say, Jerry, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to spend this bit of time with you, and such a gift. Thank you so much for your leadership at Eagle Mountain-Saginaw, and excited to continue to hear more great things coming out of the district as you continue to grow in your own leadership there before retirement.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you so much for what you're doing to bring voice to the good work that's happening in our public schools. And I'm such a believer in this institution, which is man under fire in every way, shape, or form. And I never thought I'd see anything like the fire under which public schools have come of late. But we are the keepers of democracy. We're the keepers of all things that we love and cherish, I believe, as Americans. And my word, we've got to keep telling the good stories. So thank you for what you're doing.
That is absolutely right, Jerry. And thank you for those words in closing. It is now is the time more than ever to share the good word happening out there for sure. Thanks for joining us on the On Your Mark podcast. If today's conversation sparked a question, idea, or story of your own, we want to hear it. Connect with us on LinkedIn or YouTube, or visit onyourmarkeducation.org to discover how we're accelerating early literacy through powerful school partnerships and evidence-based intervention.